Hi, everyone. Happy Hene Kainea, the celebration of our guardian spirits. Welcome to the second podcast of Paradiso Zoneworks, a podcast devoted to the occult and esoteric arts. Today, I'll speak about the meaning of life as it relates to the consumer ethic and the entertainment industrial complex. The great Austrian philosopher Ludwig Wittgenstein once said, "I don't know why we are here, but I'm pretty sure that it is not in order to enjoy ourselves." These words might surprise you. How can a philosopher, a person devoted to absolute truth, a man revered for wisdom, say he doesn't know what is, for all intents and purposes, the meaning of life? Isn't that the number one job of a philosopher, to know the meaning of life? Maybe he's showing us a backdoor way to understand what life is about. He's kind of playing a Zen trick or something. He says it's not enjoyment, so logically, if we know what something is not, then we can start reverse engineering the question back to what it is. If we know what something's not, that should help us begin the search in the opposite direction from whatever enjoyment is. So, what's the opposite of enjoyment? I won't try to answer that question right away, and I'll suggest an answer to it at the end of the podcast. The definition of enjoyment has several connotations. The most prevalent one in our times is the sense of being entertained by. Using that meaning, we can say that what Wittgenstein seems to be saying is that the entertainment industry and its permeation of individual lives, movies, popular music and literature, social media, and so on, will not make us happy. This interpretation of his words is credible. Wittgenstein was disillusioned with modern culture and the modern era, unlike many of his peers. He detested the scientific worldview, for example, and his philosophy is an attempt to salvage meaning from the bewitched scientific theories infesting the modern mind. Thinking that entertainment is not the meaning of life fits this model. But is he right? And what does it mean if he is? Wittgenstein died before the present day, where we see nearly complete inundation of daily lives by entertainment. Still, his simple remark holds true today, even more so than his own time, I would suggest. As entertainment takes on new forms with artificial intelligence, his prescience will only increase. He no doubt was able to gain insight into this phenomenon because he experienced long periods of physical isolation when he would spend time in an isolated fjord of Norway. But we can't all just take off to Norway, can we? In the following, I'll explore the problem we face spiritually, and in succeeding podcasts, begin to offer solutions. Now that we have a handle on what Wittgenstein meant, let's see where that leads us in understanding what the meaning of life is. One interesting thing for me is that entertainment can be quantified. Our lives and how much we enjoy them are objects of great interest to many entities these days. From advertising companies lurking in the cookies of our computer browsers, to online streaming services, to social media apps, to search engines, these entities are interested not only in what we enjoy, but in attaching a number to how much we enjoy it. The entertainment industry forms a large part of what is commonly called consumer society and the consumer ethic. The idea that enjoyment is not what life's about would be a big dent in the armor of the consumer ethic. If life isn't about parties and money and popular entertainment, sex, drugs, and rock and roll, with its associated enjoyment factor, then what is it about? I don't think there's an easy answer, or even if there is one. Once you start questioning the basis of something that you grow up with, never questioning it, there's no easy answer forthcoming. In fact, the first reaction is often negative. It's hard to question the basis of your life. These are ideas, concepts, emotions, and behavior we all take for granted. Indeed, you have to take them for granted if you hope to succeed and flourish socially and personally. They have to be part of your emotional and intellectual armor. Otherwise, life can be hard, to the point of ending up homeless and on the streets. What can be even weirder, you don't even know you believe or think these things, not to mention feel and act them out. No wonder so many suffer a quiet despair, as statistics on psychological welfare in the US and other Western nations, and the use of various psychiatric drugs would seem to indicate, not to mention the widespread use and abuse of narcotics. People are sold a bill of goods about what gifts the consumer culture offers, and when it doesn't pan out, psychological devastation follows. If you believe in the possibility of a spiritual dimension to life, like I do, something worse than psychological devastation takes place. At this level of reality, were one to believe it, absolute desolation, a potential destruction of everything that makes us human, can follow. If we pan out to get a bird's eye view of what's happening in our historical era, you find that what begins at the level of personal discontent blooms into social and political upheaval. Not only are people experiencing personal malaise, the worldwide social order itself is cracking at the seams in global political divisions, affecting the harmony of families and societies throughout the world. The fanaticism we've seen sprout throughout the globe like evil weeds has not been stamped out. Successive waves of fanatical Islam are now morphing in Europe, India, Israel, and the United States into new incarnations of fascism. And not just soft fascism. This is the jackbooted kind of fascism that spawned Nazi Germany, Italy, and Japan, arising in the US and Europe. The truths of the European Enlightenment have become hollow truths. Life is irrational. Freud talked about it in the form of the id and the death drive. Hitler, Stalin, Mao Zedong, and other evil minions proved his point. With colonialism, reason was just one more tool to find, exploit, and kill anyone or anything that is different from us. Enlightenment principles are found personally and socially invalid and without meaning. And the Enlightenment ethos of personal and social cohesion, consumerism, does not make us happy. In fact, it makes many of us desperately unhappy to the point of self-harm, a sad attempt to find something that's real. According to health statistics, about 17% of all people will self-harm during their lifetime. One thing that the consumer ethos does to you is put you to sleep. It makes you think you're happy, but in reality, you're in deep, deep despair. It's the old story of someone having all the riches in the world, and then one day goes off and blows his brains out. Here's how I learned it from old school poet A.E. Robinson. Whenever Richard Cory went downtown, we people on the pavement looked at him. He was a gentleman from soul to crown, clean-favored and imperially slim. And he was always quietly arrayed, and he was always human when he talked, but still he fluttered pulses when he said, "Good morning," and he glittered when he walked. And he was rich, yes, richer than a king, and admirably schooled in every grace. In fine, we thought that he was everything to make us wish that we were in his place. So on we worked and waited for the light, and when without the meat and cursed the bread. And Richard Cory, one calm summer night, went home and put a bullet through his head. As I'll suggest later on, suicide is not the out you want. That type of final act simply doesn't do you right, or any of us, since it sells that infinite being pent up inside of you short. The psychological phenomenon of thinking you're something you're not was picked up by Marx. In his analysis of capitalism, he identified times when workers believed they were free, but the data showed differently. Soren Kierkegaard, in his analysis of the political and spiritual environment of his time, calls the sickness unto death or despair. I will address this topic in later podcasts. In times of religious, social, and cultural upheaval, the sense of loss and purposelessness affects us not only in company with friends and family, but also when we are with ourselves. It is these times when, throughout the ages, historically, we see people embarking on deep and profound journeys of introspection and soul searching. Unfortunately, in the modern era, with the availability of social media, the spiritual search that ensues often ends with easy answers and superficial readings of ancient texts, answers that give the easiest and most personally gratifying interpretation, the prize of one's salvation. The logic that some seekers use to find meaning often boils down to whatever soothes my content is to be embraced. Whatever is the exact opposite of what repels me has to be the truth. It's a simplistic logic, but a powerful antidote for many to assuage their spiritual and psychological despair. When you apply this logic to deeply spiritual texts, it results in superficial readings. These readings generate in turn the poison of fanaticism and become rigid social codes used to control the intellectual, spiritual, and political freedom of other individuals, notably women. In past, more homogeneous societies, the tools to find a safe passage in the dark night of the soul into and through dark spiritual tribulations were available in tradition, social and cultural practices and beliefs that provided stable relationships with others and channeled emotions through communal rites and practices. Except for ghost tribes in the Amazon and New Guinea, all the traditional ways and practices are gone. Movement after movement of industrial, followed by Silicon forces, are leveling the last indigenous cultures, forcing the vestiges of the old languages to the edge of extinction. Crushed and destroyed by historical and political forces that often exceed the command and control of the humans who instigate and promote them, and now the threat increases exponentially as we face the possibility of semi-autonomous Silicon warlords, whose best of intentions will no doubt be even massively more destructive to humanity than their industrial forebears. When the traditional means of self-orienting one's inner spiritual core stand in ruins, where to seek answers and pathways to spiritual health and self-awareness? The cynic will even ask whether it's worth it. Where does a spark of hope originate? How do we orient ourselves to find life meaningful and worthwhile again? Sometimes the way forward is to look back and find answers that others throughout time have found in similar situations and circumstances. One such time was the age when Christian imperialism began to dominate the Mediterranean world during the first few centuries BCE and forward. All of the old pagan gods and religious institutions were being ground underfoot by Christian fanatics, supported by the jackboots and military and engineering prowess of the Roman legions. One powerful response to the destruction of ancient culture and the ripping away of ideological and spiritual supports came from Egypt. Former Egyptian temple priests began to collect together and interpret the old wisdom in the afterlife, the hierarchy of gods, and the hieratic technology of millennia to produce extraordinary texts and magical rituals of personal salvation. These ways of life were collected in works that we now know of as the Corpus Hermeticum and the Greek magical papyri. Interestingly, not only did these works give rise to the Christian hesychastic tradition in Orthodox Christianity and the flowering of esoteric Islam, but later jump-started the cultural, political, and religious movement called the Renaissance. One view of these texts is that the life we experience is unreal, barely a pale reflection of a higher, eternal reality. Hindus call this unreality of the world Maya, the impermanence of all things. Buddhists call it samsara. Things, people, events, animals have no essence. They merely present a false image of reality. In a Hermetic text, we hear Hermes telling his son Tot the following: "For man is an imperfect creature, composed of parts which are imperfect, and his mortal frame is made up of many alien bodies. But what is it within my power to say that I do say, namely, that reality exists only in things everlasting? The everlasting bodies as they are in themselves, fire that is very fire, earth that is very earth, air that is very air, and water that is very water. These indeed are real, but our bodies are made up of all these elements together. They have in them something of fire, but also something of earth and water and air, and there is in them neither real fire, nor real water, nor real air, nor anything that is real. And if our composite fabric has not really reality in it to begin with, how can it see reality or tell of reality? All things on earth, then, my son, are unreal. Human bodies are composed of various elements, each of which disintegrates and returns to its source. The stars and cosmic entities are real and influence our lives, but human life is transient and illusory. What we do, dream, think, and say comes to be and passes away. The life we live and see around us is unreal. In fact, given the transient nature of our biological makeup, reality may not even be within our grasp, for reality eludes an unreal being. Modern physics seems to bear out this idea of the impermanence and irreality of human existence. I say irreality. This is defined as emphasizing not just the not real, but some form of estrangement from our generally accepted sense of reality. Albert Einstein famously suggested that time is a convenient fiction. From the physicist's point of view, what we subjectively experience as time is an illusion, questionable but serviceable. Seen from the infinite horizon of a cosmos, billions of years old, what does my short life mean? What are these experiences of past and the now amid such unyielding change and flux, such infinite reaches? At times, overwhelmed by joy or burdened with sorrow, I feel the overwhelming sense of the world's reality. Yet yesterday is gone among the other shadows of my memory. Today flees past, often seeking some momentary whim or delight. The future will be here and gone like the other shadows of what I believe exist. Existentialist philosophers like Martin Heidegger and Jean-Paul Sartre enjoin us to choose radically authentic lives in the face of impending annihilation. Make brave and valiant gestures with full cognizance of our inevitable deaths. There is nothing else. No heaven awaits, the void beckons. Soren Kierkegaard's thinking gave birth to what became known as existentialism. Kierkegaard's thought is filled with the search for reality and the building of a self that rises above the impermanence and emptiness that fills our lives. Following his example of a life spent in self-awareness and reverence, perhaps there we see echoes of a way forward that happens to echo the Hermetic writer's own worldview. Hermes is revealing a great holy truth. The god brings to light the truth that is impossible for biological entities to attain. If you believe the writer, a divine creative reality exists beyond this world, which humans experience and inhere in. This other divine world communicates its realities to entities that have been embodied with the capacity for consciousness. In today's way of determining reality, facts and empirical realities give little evidence of anything other than oblivion after life. Is there any other choice but to believe in nothingness on either side of this illusion we call life? Giordano Bruno encapsulated the view of our impermanence as follows. In themselves, things change, and in the material world are effects and imperfect. They are rather non-beings than beings, for they issue from the void, and so far from truly being, they depart into the void. Wherefore their true being is in the one, itself, wherein they are truly known in simplicity and concurrence. For there all things are one, without distinction or dispersion or number, but there in an ineffable way. And it's that ineffable way that Bruno saw and tried to tell us about, which was the reason the fanatical Catholic Church burned him at the stake. And they still refuse to apologize for murdering him to this day. Where consciousness rises above its own biological programming and attains awareness of truths and realities that bring into focus a world of meaning that spans historical epochs. The vision of worlds that brings together the generations of seekers aspiring to see themselves whole and alive. Where do we find this reality? It was Bruno who showed a way. We live in an infinite universe with an uncountable number of galaxies and suns and planets. And this infinity is connected at the smallest subatomic level to the largest galactic level. A spirit runs through creation and links the human spirit with the spirits of lives and worlds light years apart. One of Bruno's great occult discoveries is that we can live in harmony with change and impermanence, which comprise life's irreality. Change is constant. Grasping what's real in the midst of this impermanence requires first a grasp of that impermanence, and second, this realization makes our spiritual change possible. And once we have that realization and institute our spiritual praxis, we can come closer and closer to unification with the One. Ghosts in an ever-changing world, we live out our program roles until we wake to the song of the universe, the song that sings in the heart of silence, as Hermes says. But we must regain our awareness of the universal spirit that links all things. Can we accept such a revelation of other worlds above, beyond our reality? Can we inhabit lives towards those realities until we manifest their goodness in what we do and what we say? We stand at the threshold of a new era, all lies leveled to the ground in ideological scraps and dross. People root through the rubble and glue piece after piece together to try and cobble together a psyche, a way to see beyond their pain and despair. But those are the lucky ones. The other ones do not even have a clue that there's a choice to be made. Their souls have been muted and mangled by the senselessness of the ever-turning facets of the entertainment phantasmagoria. In today's world of faltering ideologies, false consciousness, and frantic attempts to hold on to spiritual hegemony among the world's religions, today nothing is true while everything is true. We have immense tools at our fingertips to entertain and distract and shield us from our real work, the work of salvation. Christianity has proved itself weak and corrupt. The facade of humility and beneficence stripped away to reveal a thirst for power as much as any political entity. The other religions are following suit, in the grips of one fanaticism after another, violently grasping to attain dominance in the social and political spheres. They strangle the thirsting soul with inhumane and barbaric interpretations of divine illumination. We occultists believe that there's more to the world than what we see. There's magic and wonder in the world waiting to catapult us to greater levels of self-awareness. This vision of the world understands the universe as an interconnected whole, a living being where animate and inanimate live and partake of universal oneness, an interconnectedness of spirit that brings us into oneness with the vast universe that unfolds beauty after beauty every day, every year of our lives and beyond. French philosopher, mystic, and founder of modern probability theory, Blaise Pascal, said that humans have a stark choice when they honestly face the fact of impending death. Believe in nothing after life, or bet on something that establishes unearthly happiness. He challenged his readers to a wager. Choose to make a bet that there is something after life, immense happiness, the continual hymn of the cosmos, or choose that there's nothing after death. In his eyes, the odds favored those who choose the existence of a world after death. And we occultists say, listen to the song of the cosmos. Hear the interconnectedness that brings us into oneness with the vast universe that unfolds beauty after beauty each day, every year of our lives and beyond. Historically, for better or for worse, there's no going back. Not simply because time travel doesn't exist, but because we don't want to. The future revealed by our current social and cultural ruin opens new vistas that we can mold new lives from, new pathways of magic and wonder. The point is that in the ruins that lie at our feet, there are diamonds and promises we must polish and explore. Near the beginning of the podcast, I asked, what is the opposite of enjoyment? I don't know whether Wittgenstein had this particularly in mind, but wonder is one of the things I believe are opposite enjoyment. I can enjoy a movie, but not, I suggest, a sunset. Does the sunset entertain me? Not only are the sensations involved different, but so is the immensity and splendor that elevate my soul. When we're giving our full attention to the majesty and splendor of the sunset in all its natural wonder, we do more than enjoy it. It overwhelms our senses and transports us onto another plane of existence. The choice to become and engage in the occult, making its practices and beliefs your own, is to exist in the world as a worshiper of the wonder that animates all life and gives it meaning, makes real the unreal, finds substance in the eternal, and eternity in substance. Have you chosen yet? It's getting late. That's my message for this day. Join me next time as I begin to discuss the occult. May the peace of the great God-nourishing silence be with you, and the blessings of Hecate be upon you.